Hi, today I'm going to present you how to make sound decisions using psychological principles. And this is how the social cognition can play a role in decision making. So I want to present you this number. You probably have no idea what this number is, but study shows that on average, an adult will make 35,000 decisions every single day. With that said, if we exclude the 8 hours of sleep, we still have to make 2,000 decisions per hour, and that goes down to 1 decision per second. The decision you made to raise your hands, to turn your eyes, to a bigger decision to what to eat for lunch. So every single day, we have to be in this situation of making decisions. So first, let's start to make some quick decisions together. Consider the R in English. Which case do you think it occur more often? The R being the first letter of the words or the third letter of the words?
B.
B?
I don't know.
A.
What do you think, Jackson?
Choose C.
C? Actually, the answer is B.
I just guess.
Yes, but most people probably wouldn't choose B because it's such an uncomfortable judgment to make, because usually we can recall more vocabularies with R in the first letter than R being the third. But good job, guys. Another questions. Dave is obsessed with biology and loves studying primates. In your opinion, Dave is more likely to be A cashier at a local grocery store near where you live, B, a primate scientist with a focus on monkeys' neurological functioning.
B.
B.
My instincts tell me it's A, but the logical answer is B.
For me, I feel like my logical thinking will lead me to A. Like at the beginning, like by instinct, I feel like it's B. But after, like being more logical, I feel like it's A. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So you have been conditioned with my couple slides already. But actually, despite what Dave is obsessed with, if we just pull out a regular person from a crowd, that person has a higher chance to be a cashier than being a scientist, because there's more demand for cashier than scientists. And out of all the scientists, there's less people to study about monkeys. So this answer, in my opinion, I would say cashier. But there's no right or wrong answer here. So let's look at what other people will make decisions. So we just made our own decisions. And this is an experiment conducted in 1983. And the independent variables here is the social status. So this participant, Hannah, was an actress. So she has been put in a poor neighborhood playing and a rich neighborhood. And then the experimenter was recording Hannah playing in these two types of neighborhood. And the method was randomly assigns a participant to watch the video of Hannah playing in these neighborhoods. And then they saw Hannah answering the IQ test with ambiguous performance. So the only difference is the neighborhood. And the dependent variable, which is, so this is independent variable is the things that we can control, the experiments can control. The dependent variables is how the participants will react. So they have been asked to rate Hannah's grade at school. And the finding of this experiment was shockingly stereotypical. So those who saw Hannah playing in a rich neighborhood, their average answer was a grade higher, which is about 4th grade. But those who saw Hannah playing in a poor neighborhood, they will predict Hannah to be in the 3rd grade, which means less intelligent. So as we can see, when we made these quick decisions earlier, we have this, our mind was tricking us. And also here, to a greater population, we can see biases in judgment still exist. So how can we make better decisions with better judgment? And to this point, I think we can all agree that our thinking is not always rational and make no mistakes. In fact, we have all made mistakes in the past in our decision making. So what we just saw of all that is called heuristics, like all the answers we just saw. So what is heuristic? Heuristic is a problem-solving methods that we use all the time. And they are unconsciously mental shortcut that we use to help us to conserve brain energy. But sometimes it may or may not help us when we make decisions. And they can help us to reduce mental efforts to simplify complex information. And we usually use them when we need to draw a conclusion really fast, but there are trade-offs while using heuristics. So sometimes we can see biases, errors occur in our judgment. So when do we use heuristic? When we are overloaded with a lot of information and when the questions at hand is not important to us. So this is a typo, sorry. And when we have limited knowledge about the questions, and also when we don't have enough time to solve these things, or when we need an answer quick. Like, I like this analogy of driving this car at 80 miles per hour really fast. So when we were driving this fast and we could not have that much time to make a decision, so we kind of go into this autopilot mode that we just let our autopilot to drive the car. Instead, we will use our brain energy to do something that's more important to us. For example, in this case, reading a book. So I'm gonna present you some of the heuristics that we can spot in our daily life. So judgmental heuristic is assume traits based on the categories that it belongs to. An example is assume people from Texas are Republican because Texas is a Republican state. Or I'm sure at some point in your life you have heard of this sentence. You got a degree from, or you go to UC Berkeley, you go to college, you should have known this already. So people were assigning you based on putting you into boxes. Another heuristic is representativeness heuristic, kind of similar to this one, but the opposite way. So representative is to classify you or something belongs to a group or category because of its related typical traits. For example, someone who speaks with a British accent must be a British. This happened to me one time. I had a classmate, she's from British and she had a very thick accent, but actually the professor thought she was from Australia, and it made a big embarrassment during her presentation. So people may not from this country, you might assume. People with American accents might from Canada. So another one, availability heuristic, is assume the likelihood of something to appear based on how easily it comes to mind. So basically the first thing it comes to mind, we will kind of thought, oh, that's more likely to happen. An example is in the US 2016, there are more people who die from gun violence or car accidents. So some people might say gun violence because, especially during that year, because in the US 2016, there was a lot of news about the Orlando shootings. So because that has been coming to their mind more often by watching the news, so they might automatically think that, oh, gun violence probably kill more people than car accidents, but the cause of death, usually car accidents and cancer, has been the highest consistently every year. So another one is anchoring and adjustment heuristic. This is when we estimate something, we start off with a rough estimation, so which is the anchor, then adjust it based on the following new information, the adjustment. I'm sure that we have all encountered this when we buy something. And one example is when you see expensive wine or expensive things on the first page of the menu, and then as you flip the menu, there will be cheaper items on the last page of the menu. And if you just saw this last page on the menu first, then you're less likely to pay that much money. But if you see this $80 wine on the first page of the menu, then you see $40. Although $40 is still a lot, but because you were exposed to the $80, then you are more likely to think $40 wine is not that bad. And I'm sure you have seen these type of things on Amazon. So $14.99 and $59.99, that became an anchor for you when you shop. And when you see the new price, which is the adjustment, then you will compare and you will think, oh, that's not a lot, but it's actually still a lot if you were not exposed to the anchor, but your mind was tricking you and telling you that that's not a lot compares to the anchor, but not your actual budget. Another one is actor-observer bias. So if you were the actor, we were more likely to attribute to our environments. So attribute the results of something. And if you were observer, you'll be more likely to attribute things, the results, to inward characteristics. So for example, in a scenario that a bad grade occurred, and when you see your classmate got a lower grade than you, we would tend to believe they are probably not as smart as you, and they're probably dumb. But in the case when we got lower grade than our classmates, we will have all this reasoning in our mind. Maybe we didn't have enough time to prepare. Maybe we were busy because there were a lot of other assignments going on. So same principle. This is called self-serving bias. So this is when we take credit for the good and deny the bad. In the same case, when we get a good grade, we will think because we are so smart. But when we get a bad grade, we will think, oh, maybe I didn't sleep good enough the night before, and looking for some external excuses. Another one, framing effects. I'm sure you guys are familiar with this. This is to have two equal information with different highlights, either it's positive or negative. So if you see 90% lean beef, it seems better than 10% fat beef, but actually they are all the same. And here, in a more serious scenario, is a surgery consent form. So they will say, you have 90 chance of survival rates of this surgery, or this 10% risk of complication. And as you can see, you're more likely to buy into the surgery consent form than the one on the right. So another example of anchoring effects, framing effects, is actually I just play a framing effect to you because I said on this PowerPoint topics how to make sound decision using psychological principle. But in fact, this presentation is not going to help you to make sound decision. This is just me trying to frame my topic in a way that can sound very interesting to you. But I'm basically just giving you all this logics behind how we make decisions and giving you the tools to avoid you, so to speak, to not go on autopilot when you were driving 80 miles per hour on the freeway. So I'm gonna conclude this. So I will still give you some tips on how to make sound decisions by using psychological principles. So all of this heuristic was us when we're not being aware of when we're making decisions. So my first tips would be more mindful and self-aware when you're making decisions. When you make decisions, actually talk to yourself that, yes, I'm actually making a decision instead of making mindless decision. Also be rational. Don't put too much weight on emotions. Sometimes having emotions is good. Like what Howard just said, the feelings of not running is worse than the feelings of going for a run. So sometimes emotions can add for an advocate, like we should have a good amount of anxiety before an interview that can help us to reach performance peak. But we should also be aware of when emotions have played a bigger role than your logic. That's when your decision can be biased. And then also put yourself in situation when your views are being challenged. I think we're doing a pretty good job. We present every week and then we receive feedbacks and have discussions from people who might have a different opinions. And also consider all aspects of the decision that you have to make and take your time, especially when you need to sign a housing contract or surgery consent form. Do not rush into decisions unless you have to. With that being said, also give yourself some buffer time to make decisions so that you will not be in situation that you don't have enough time. And then you just rush to a conclusion. And also sometimes making a list can help us to make decisions too. Especially if we have to compare two decisions, and then making a concise list and then compare every aspect can help us as well. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.